Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Cher. I'm so excited for today's episode. So I normally do a lot of beauty here on my channel, but I also have such a passion for travel as well. And so we're going to be covering some travel. I have the dream trip of my life coming up in less than a month. I can't believe it's already almost here. And I have a lot to prepare for and get ready. So I'm going to make today's episode be sort of a prep video, and we're going to go through and talk a lot about things you have to think about and how to prepare for traveling internationally. This is actually my very first time traveling internationally, especially by myself. I have traveled before internationally, but it's been more on cruises. So this is my first time ever flying to another country alone on a plane, if that makes sense, and using a passport. So I've learned a lot in planning for this trip, and so I thought I would share everything that I have learned, especially if you're kind of a noob like me, all the things you have to think about, and bring you along for doing all of the prep. We're going to make a little list. I'm going to show you things I have to think about when packing, how to pack for Scotland, like money, currencies, and exchanges. So if that interests you, make sure that you pop that subscribe button because I do love to do a lot of travel here, and we're going to be covering a lot about Scotland in the coming weeks. If you love that and are as excited about it as I am, you will want to tune in. And I also do a lot of other beauty topics here on my channel too. I'm a professional makeup artist also, so you're going to see a mix of both. I'm kind of multifaceted on my channel. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and dig in. Okay, so first of all, the logistics of our trip real quick, just a little intro of, what all we're doing and all. So this is actually a group of friends that I'm going with. One friend in particular, she goes to Scotland like every other year. She loves Scotland as much as I do. So anyway, other girls are going to go to some other places too beforehand. I couldn't do the whole trip. I'm basically flying to meet them for the second part of their trip, which is the Scotland part. I'm basically going to present you guys a list in a list format here of things to think about and the steps to take in preparing, for a big trip like this. The first step is getting organized, making your agenda so you have it all laid out for yourself and having, it all put together. So the first task that I had just this week in starting to try to plan and make sure I'm getting everything finalized for my trip took my information from my arrangements that I made by myself for my part of the trip in the beginning, and I went ahead and started putting them all together in one big agenda that has all of my flight info, my hotel info, so that my family all has everything, here. They know where to find me. This gave me a lot more organized look at like what we're doing. So I took all of that, I put it in a little Word document, and I just broke it by every day. So then the second step, well, this of course isn't really your second step because you need to do this very early on. Of course, the second step is applying for your passport. So if you're going to travel internationally, you do have to have a passport. And I will tell you that since the COVID days, everything is very, very behind in processing. So if they tell you, okay, it's going to be 3 months, I would not go on 3 months. Get started as early as you can applying for your passport because there are a lot of horror stories out there of people who still did not have their passport 3 months later. So just know that it is very behind in the U.S. passport office where you're applying. Now, where do you go to apply for your passport? I mean, I'm breaking this down like dummy style here, guys, because I was a passport dummy. I have never applied for a passport in my life. I didn't have one. So you need to take all of your paperwork. You got to have identification, definitely want to have your birth certificate. You basically want to get onto the website and look for everything that you need. You want to have all of this documentation with you, so make sure you have it all. Now, one of the things I did not have that I had lost was my marriage license. The reason I needed my marriage license was because since my birth certificate is different than what I'm applying for on my passport, I need to show my marriage license and where my last name changed. Didn't have my marriage license. I was nowhere to be found. I blame my husband. So I had to first apply for, I had to first get my marriage license again, get another copy of it before I go to the passport office. So you want to go ahead and make sure you have all the documentation you need and take it with you. They have forms for you to fill out at the office, but I really recommend that you go grab you like 3 or 4 forms and take it home and really look over it. If you don't have the exact stuff that you need. You make any tiny little mistake, pin mark, anything, they're going to make you redo it. Just a heads up on that. You might want to have a few extras, because otherwise if you mess up at the office, you're going to be there forever. You might have to come back. That's just my little tip there. Try to have your forms, like several forms to fill out, okay? So you fill out your forms, take all your documentation down to, for me, it was the tax collector's office. You know, you got to go find locally where you can take it. Keep in mind, there is the overall US passport fee, okay? But there is also a local fee on top of that. That is one thing I did not plan for in my budgeting. So keep in mind that it's not just the passport fee that they give you guys. I had to pay an additional local fee on top of that. On top of that, as part of the passport process, you're going to need a photo, but you're going to need a passport friendly photo. So before you go apply for this photo, another document you're going to need is your photo. You can go down to UPS and do this. You can do it at Walgreens, you know, drugstore, some of those places, but it has to be the passport like sizing and everything, and meet their requirements for a picture. So that's an extra fee and more costs to you. And I will say that UPS was more expensive, but they were the best and most efficient. So I used them. I spent twice as much on my passport fees than I had planned for in my budget. So I wanted to give you a heads up there that it can get a lot more expensive than you think if you're only looking at the US passport fee overall, okay? So there's a lot more fees that are built in. And this is another thing that's going to get you always plan so much more than you think in your budget, because fees are going to get you. Okay, so that was a lot with the passport. Now, I went ahead and expedited mine because I think I started in May. I knew I had about 4 months. My friend just went ahead and advised me, just expedite it, just in case, just to be safe. And so I went ahead and expedited it. So that's an extra fee to get it here quicker. But I just want to let you know, if you're in doubt and you think it's cutting it kind of close, don't go by what the passport people tell you. Just go a lot more conservative and just expedite it. That is my advice for you. Nothing worse than spending all this money on a trip, maybe a non-refundable airline ticket like me, which we'll get to in a minute, only to find out that your passport didn't get here in time, and there is nothing you can do. Step 3, let's talk airline tickets. Okay, one thing that I learned is you can go straight through the airline, or you can go through a third party like Expedia, Priceline, those people. I think you tend to kind of find a little bit cheaper prices when you go through a third party. The problem though is they had a lot less flexibility. I also booked mine non-refundable. Like an idiot. However, here's the thing. My budget was so small that it was going to make me or break me as to whether I did, you know, refundable or not, because some of the tickets, they added on an extra $200 to make it refundable. You can get trip protection versus refundable too. It'd be a good $400 or $500 more. I was like, forget it on the trip insurance, but refundable is different. But I did end up just going with non-refundable. Now, they did, however, change my flight already twice since then. So it is refundable if it's on their end, but if it's you changing the flight, it's not refundable. So what happened for me was I got absolutely alarmed. I was horrified because I got an email from Expedia saying that my flight was canceled. So I was like, so I called. The first time that I called, I got a lady that told me, oh, flights change all the time. Just wait until like a month out. You're just so way ahead of time now. It'll change again. So just wait and see what it's going to do then and decide. So what had really happened was one of my connecting flights that was domestic had actually changed the time on it just slightly. And so it just kind of shifted some things, but it was still available. It was just that the time changed. But the way that Expedia sent it to me made it look like my flight was canceled. So you just always want to make sure you pick up the phone, call them and ask. But she still didn't give me a lot of info. I was going to take her at her word, and I decided, no, I don't feel settled about this. No, this is my dream trip. I'm not letting this get messed up. So I called back again, and this time I got a different guy who he just went ahead and changed my flight for me. And he said, yes, it could change again, but if you want to change it, change the times, because the times weren't working as well. It ended up giving me a much longer layover. Well, I never would have known that had I not dug and asked more. And so this is part of the issues with dealing with the intermediate, third party versus directly with the airlines. I think you can get a lot more detailed information straight from the airlines, okay? So if you do book with a third party, just make sure you stay on it. If you see things like this, call them and ask. So he ended up changing my flights. Then it changed again. So one thing I wanted to kind of point out, I had a layover in Miami, from Miami to London, okay? And then from London to Edinburgh. Well, my London flight, it ended up, the way that the times changed, my layover was going to end up being only about an hour. And not having flown ever before, I didn't know, is that enough time, between flights? It takes a long time just to get from one gate to another sometimes. And then, my sister pointed out to me, you're going to have to get through customs. So I was like, yeah, I'm not chancing that. So I changed it again. And this time there was nothing available. And so I ended up having to go a day early to get a flight again. But so keep in mind, I goofed because I should have told them, well, then upgrade me to a higher class, because I was in like basic economy, So don't let them get one over on you. So these are just some of the things I've learned along the way. I wanted to share my knowledge of how this all worked. So when you're booking your flight, I think that I might recommend going directly with the flight instead of third party. Secondly, I would really recommend refundable. And third, keep in mind that your flights are going to possibly change, especially if you're booking way ahead of time. It will change all the time. Some other things to think about with the airline. You're not just paying for your ticket. So you're going to look at your overall ticket. You're going to find that round trip tickets are, in general, tend to be much cheaper than a one-way ticket. But even with a round trip ticket, you're still going to have connecting flights. Like I have 3 flights on the way there and 3 flights on the way back, but that's all for a round trip ticket. And so if one flight is late, it's going to affect you catching all the others. So you still need to pay a lot of attention to your layovers and how much time is in between them. And just know, like, check for yourself and ask, like, do you think I'm going to have enough time for this? So when booking your ticket, you're not going to just think about the cost of the trip itself. It's going to be an extra fee for every little thing too. So if you're booking economy, like I am, you're not going to automatically have other things built in like luggage and choice seating and things like that. So for each of those extra things you want, you're going to be paying extra. One of the biggest things I'm looking at is my luggage weight. There's no way that I'm going to Europe for over a week and only be packing a carry-on. So I'm going to have an extra charge when I go to have a check-in bag too. So check your weight limits. So depending on your flight, you want to go to the website and you want to really look in detail at the weight limits, where they cap you off. This is going to be on the way there and on the way back. So you're paying for both a fee for the travel there and a fee for the travel back on that luggage. So what if you're doing, round trip like I am, there and back, then you're going to double the amount of your check-in bag fee. All right. Another thing where they can really nick you and charge you extra is for preferential seating. You're going to get placed randomly if you don't pick your seats. It doesn't automatically always come with your basic economy flight. And it's all different pricing per seat. Like the good seats people really want in certain places are going to cost more. I tend to pick like the cheaper seat as long as it's not a middle seat. Like I don't want to be crammed between people. That's what I care about. And I don't feel like I'll be able to sleep if I'm between people. So I want to be able to like lean one way or the other, So that's another thing to think about when booking your flight, is all these extra little costs. Okay. We will get into the weight limit stuff a little later in this video when I talk about packing. We're going to talk about how to pack and some fun little gadgets and tools to help you with that too. So I'll get into a little bit more of the weight limit stuff later on. We're going to move on to step 4. So step 4 is thinking about different gadgets you're going to need. So the biggest thing is you're going to need a different converter, something that is going to convert your, like basically we use different outlets in the United States than in Europe and like the UK where I'm going. So you need to make sure that, your phone and any devices that are going to need charging and plugging into the wall and stuff like that, that you're going to have the right kind of chargers and ports and stuff for what they use in the UK. So you can buy these easily on Amazon. Really look at the specifications on it. It'll tell you how much it can handle. So the more like power that you need, the more it's going to cost. If you get one that has that's too small, that can't handle a lot of power, you won't be able to do extra things, like even for like a hair dryer, anything that plugs in, you got to think about that. So really read over in the reviews and in the description, like what all it can actually accommodate. So that is the next on my list to do. I have not done yet, but I'm about to do it. So I figured I would share that part with you and make sure, that's something you got to consider. Step 5, another thing that I'm about to start working on too, is my money currency. And so in the UK, they use pounds. That's their dollar figure. So I had to kind of start researching, well, what am I going to do for money? I don't want to carry like a lot of cash on me because pickpocketing is big in Europe. I mean, anywhere in a big city, I think, but I hear a lot about Europe. And so, I don't want to carry like a huge wad of cash, but I want to make sure I have enough on me. A lot of places there do accept American currency, is what I hear. So I'm going to probably be bringing a little bit of pounds, but a little bit of American cash too. And just try not to have like too much though. Because they also accept a lot of credit cards. And from what I am told, there's a lot of vendors that, you just use your phone and you just use apps on your phone there a lot. But I want to make sure I have enough in going there. So I'm going to be getting out a little bit of pounds just in case, and where you want to get it. So that's another thing. I'm going to go to my bank and just have them order. Now, what my bank told me is it all depends on what the rates are at the time. The exchange rates change all the time. So the fee is going to be different at different times. So really you probably want to wait till like the week of your trip or like a couple weeks beforehand and go ahead and like see what the rates are at that time. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm probably going to save my currency and getting all my cash out and stuff for the last minute. Another thing to think about with the money, if you're going to be taking the credit cards, make sure you alert your credit card companies or your banks that you're going to be out of the country. Because if they start seeing a bunch of charges from Europe, they might shut your card down and think fraud. And then you're stuck there with your credit cards not working, and you're going to have to call the banks and be like, oh my gosh, I need y'all to turn this back on. So go ahead and alert them before you leave about that too. That's a big tip. And for pickpocketing, okay, so I am going to be carrying, on one hand, I don't think this is a great idea because it makes you a target. Everybody knows you're a tourist then. I'm going to be carrying a little fanny pack, but I'm not going to keep everything in my fanny pack, okay? And other things like, okay, if this is another travel tip I saw on another channel, if you're going out to clubs or you're staying in a resort, anybody that gives you a wristband to get into something, getting VIP treatment or something, and you're done with that place, take that wristband off because it will really alert everybody that you're a tourist. So as much less attention that you can draw to yourself as being a tourist, and the more you can fit in with everybody, the less of a target you're going to be for pickpocketing. So I'm going to be stashing money and cash in all different places just in case, because there have been stories of people that, they're good at pickpocketing. And even if you're carrying a bag, a fanny pack, anything on your body, there's been a lot of folks that they just come up with that razor blade and they're gone. And that it's popped off your body and your whole purse is gone, or your whole bag, or even your fanny pack. So I'm planning to kind of wear things in a way that is hidden under my clothes. I'm probably going to put some stuff down in my bra, like the really important stuff, things that are very hard for pickpockets to get to. Okay, so next let's talk about your phone service. So if you don't get international phone service, you're only going to be able to use your phone at Wi-Fi spots. And so, especially since we're going to a lot of places in the Highlands, I have no clue what the service is going to be like there. I am planning to do an international phone service. So that's another thing on my list today is I'm calling my phone carrier and I'm going to ask them to put me on the international plan. And I think it's usually, I've been told it's around like $10 extra for the time that you're there. So I'm going to start making those calls and getting that lined up too, because I definitely want, especially since I'm going by myself for a couple days, I want to know that I have phone service if I need it. And then let's also talk about when you're booking your hotels and Airbnbs and all those kind of things. So one thing that you'll find is the closer to like city centers, the more expensive your hotels are going to get because they're close to everything that everybody wants to go to. Some cheaper options, there's a look further out of town, or, Airbnb. Look at, all the hidden fees, especially if it's a Airbnb. Look at things like, can you do an early check-in? Does it have breakfast or not? Not all of them will serve you breakfast. You're going to find that traditional breakfast in Scotland tends to be almost like the Englishman's breakfast, I think. They all have like baked beans on the side, sausage and eggs. It's like a very heavy, hearty breakfast from what I have seen, just to prepare you on some of the food, but I will bring you more of that once I'm actually there. And always double check to make sure if your room is refundable or not. As I was having to add a night after my flight changed and I had to go a day early, I was struggling to find the places that were refundable still. Another thing to think about is your transportation. Trying to look on, Google Maps or wherever and see where your hotels are located. Because if you're not getting a rental car, you want to make sure that you're somewhere close by public transit. So in Scotland, like I'm flying in the first day by myself. Once the girls come, we have a rental car. And so we're going to be driving all around Scotland in a rental car. But for the couple of days, I'm by myself. I'm going to be relying on public transport or on Ubers or cabs. Do you know I have never in my life used an Uber or a taxi by myself? Ever. I don't even know what I'm doing. It's going to be a learning experience. So I'll bring you guys along for that. But I did look at where my hotels were located in vicinity to the public transport. You have both you have bus options and you have train options in Scotland. And so most of where you're at in the center city will run on both, but keep in mind, you're going to be walking with your luggage if you're coming straight from the airport to there. So it might honestly be in your best interest even to catch a cab. So then you can drop off directly and not be lugging your luggage several blocks up hills and stairs, because there's a lot of hills and stairs in Edinburgh, I'll tell you that. And that's where you got an airport in Edinburgh and Glasgow, I think. Edinburgh is kind of the main one. Lots of hills and stairs everywhere, okay? So think about that. You might prefer taxi if you don't want to walk all over the place with your luggage. Another hotel I have is close to the airport, but it's, a bit of a walk from the bus station. They do have free airport shuttle at some hotels, but keep in mind on the airport I'm staying at, there's no shuttle on the weekends. And of course, that's when I need my shuttle from the hotel to the airport to go meet my girls, is on a Saturday. So keep that in mind. Just because they say they have airport shuttle, it doesn't mean it runs every day. So make sure you check on the days too. Right, so that's a lot of just the kind of administrative tips I wanted to give you. Now let's talk about the packing. So apparently the temperatures in the UK go on the Celsius system, not on the Fahrenheit. We're in Fahrenheit here in the United States. So I got to always convert and see, okay, what does that mean temperature wise? So what I discovered was around September time, we're estimating like 40 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold for a Florida girl. Now 60 is going to be like light jacket weather, but 40 is like heavy coat and sweater weather for me. Okay. So I'm struggling with how to pack. So it's going to be a lot of layers. We're going to be, I'm going to be doing a lot of like yoga pants, stretchy pants, leggings, and they're like maybe a flannel or a cardigan, pretty good jacket too. It's going to be layers, layers, layers. So that, because it can alternate. And apparently Edinburgh too is like a very muddy city. There's a lot of mud everywhere, apparently. So good tennis shoes and hiking boots. That's basically like what you need. I've been told, and to fit in, I'm not going with like a huge amount of color. It's going to be a lot of like, hiking apparel basically. So yeah. And then, weight limits. So travel size bottles. Okay, so recently they did redo the guidelines where you can't be taking a large size of liquids. You got to pack everything in your carry-ons to be little small ones. So you got to measure and make sure, go to like the dollar store and buy you those little travel sizes where you can actually measure like exactly how much it is. Pour things like your shampoos, your lotions, your makeup. You've even got to think about your foundation. Y'all know me, the makeup artist. This is going to be hard for me. Anything that's liquid is going to have to be stuck to like a very small travel size. Your skincare, moisturizers, all of that. So you got to be packing smart for that. I will probably just take you through a separate packing video when it comes time to pack, where we do all of that. My sister's going to come over and help me because she is kind of a little more experienced in international travel, and she and my whole family are very worried about me and my heavy packing, and can I do it? But I do want to show you a little gadget that can be helpful for packing real quick that she got me. So this is called a luggage scale, and she got it for me back at my birthday knowing I was going to need it. And it basically, you hook this up to the handle, around the handle of your suitcase, and pick it up carrying the suitcase by the handle, and it will tell you how much it weighs. So this will help you know if you have hit your weight limit or not, and it will include the suitcase weight too, by the way. Okay, guys, I think that's everything that I can think of for right now. So all of the things that I've learned so far, I wanted to share my knowledge, especially for those international noobs like myself. I hope that was really helpful. I will be bringing you more. I'm going to try to bring you guys a packing video. I am also going to bring you another special little video, which is Scotland ancestry, a little history. And I'm big on genealogy. My maiden name is McIntyre, so I actually have done a lot of research on my McIntyre clan, which is in Scotland. It's Scottish. And so this is one of the another reasons I'm obsessed with Scotland. It's part of my heritage. So I'm going to bring you guys another video all about the McIntyres and just a lot of the history to prepare you for the trip to Scotland, because I just love it. If it interests you, you'll like it too. All right, guys, that wraps it up. So make sure that you turn the notification bells to on for the next few Scotland videos and packing and travel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.